Hi, and welcome to New Gods Sunday School. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, starring Adam Starr and the Solar Legion. All three of these books are available by following the links in the show notes below. So this is Jack Kirby's all-new conclusion to the immortal saga of the New Gods. At last, a fury-filled cosmic battle when even gods must die. So let me open this up so you can see the full wraparound art, which looks amazing. So this is a piece that Jack Kirby drew in the 80s and was inked by D. Bruce Berry, who had inked a lot of Jack's work in the 70s. See Darkseid, Tyrant of Terror, return from oblivion. See Kalibak, the cruel crusher, fight Orion to the death. See Steppenwolf unleash his demon dog cavalry on his helpless enemy Light Ray. And so this is issue 6, and what they did in the 80s was they reprinted Jack Kirby's New Gods in this higher quality format, better paper, more faithful printing. It's issue number 6. Each one of these issues had 2 issues of the New Gods in it. So by issue 6, you have New Gods number 11 and the all-new New Gods number 12. You have a all-new conclusion to the story of the New Gods. Now, what the original plan was, okay, we're going to bring back Jack Kirby's New Gods, and it's unfinished, so as we reprint them, we'll leave a slot open for Kirby to create a final issue for it. And as I detailed in the previous video, it didn't exactly work out that way. So what they did was they took Jack Kirby's conclusion and he mixed it in with a bunch of new pages he made, and that became the Hunger Dogs graphic novel, which was drawn before the issue that's in here, but was released afterwards. And so this, Even Gods Must Die, is the last piece of Jack Kirby's conclusion that he created, but it's the first one in publishing order and obviously in the official reading order. I have my own reading order that I do when I'm reading Jack Kirby's 1980s New Gods comics, and my preferred reading order is to follow basically the order that these videos are being released. So in the previous video, I talked about On the Road to Armageddon. So when I want to read Jack Kirby's conclusion to the New Gods, I read On the Road to Armageddon first, and then I read this, Even Gods Must Die. And then the third thing I read is the remaining pages of the Hunger Dogs. Maybe you have your own remix that you do to read these stories, but for me, that's the best reading experience that I get from this series. And to me, it's like far superior to reading them, in the order in which they're presented. So here we have a reprint of New Gods number 11, what had been the final issue of New Gods for all those years. And then when you get to this final panel, in the original publication, this panel was just an ad for either the Demon or Commandy, I forget which. And this was the final panel of the story. And so it shall be, I can deny it no longer, to others or to myself. I am Darkseid's son, armed and ready with the heritage bequeathed me, the ultimate ferocity. When I clash with Darkseid, and I think in the original lettering it was, when I clash with Darkseid, the war will end. But they changed it to, when I clash with Darkseid, the war will end now. And then boom, straight into the new story, Even Gods Must Die. In the final analysis, Even Gods Must Die. Now, to do this, they took a panel from Jack's Even Gods Must Die story and sort of, present it here as this transitional panel to get you from here to here. And again, I can see the thinking to sort of make the New Gods in this new format read as sort of a mini-series with a beginning, middle, and end, and make sort of a smooth segue from here to here. But all of the 1980s Jack Kirby New Gods comics that he made all seem to be made under the premise that a lot of time has passed between the last time we saw these characters and now. So this makes it seem as if this is happening like immediately after this. Like he's like, the war will end now. He hops through a boom tube and boom, there he is. But it doesn't really make narrative sense when you're reading these because, again, like I said, they all sort of hinge on the idea that a lot has changed in Apokolips since the last time we've seen these characters. So the way we've been doing it in this video series, working all the way through, and then after New Gods ends and Forever People ends, reading all the Mr. Miracle comics after that kind of does give us a little bit of narrative space where it has been a long time since we checked in on these characters and saw what they were up to. So I feel like that's actually been pretty satisfying, having this sort of break in time where you can sort of, feel the absence of these characters. So in any event, you read On the Road to Armageddon first. For the Tom Scioli reading order, you read On the Road to Armageddon first, then you read Even Gods Must Die. In the final analysis, Even Gods Must Die, it's a boom tube gaining entry to Apokolips. Orion is back, but he won't like our mechanoids reception. Captain Victory, which precedes this comic, and some say might have even been the impetus for this comic existing, but there are the mechanos, which are kind of spelled similarly, and then in one of Jack Kirby's earliest comics, a sort of science fiction comic that he did after Solar Legion, there's also an alien group called the Mechanos. So it's a name that kind of stuck with Kirby. We get this amazing double-page splash. Writer-artist Jack Kirby, inks and lettering D. Bruce Berry, colorist Anthony Tolan. This is a really great issue. It's really fun. Between On the Road to Armageddon and Hunger Dogs, he did everything he sort of set out to do with ending the series, but his employers, and also readers, myself included, wanted at some point to have that big slam bang fight between Darkseid and Orion. And so with this comic, Kirby delivers that. And this comic is a lot of fun. It's not as deep as On the Road to Armageddon or Hunger Dogs, but it is a lot of fun. It does have some pretty amazing moments and some poignant moments too. It's sort of Jack Kirby sort of filling a hole and, satisfying his employers and, maybe fan perception too, because I wanted a fight between Darkseid and Orion. Now, it makes sense to me, for Kirby that he did not see that happening. Even if maybe that was his intent when he started this series, when it came time for that fight, Darkseid doesn't want to fight Orion. Orion wants badly to fight Darkseid. Darkseid does not want to fight Orion. People sort of wanted that sort of slam bang conclusion, thinking of the great Kirby fights like Thor versus Hercules, Orion versus Calabac, Iron Man versus Submariner. We just think of all these great epic Kirby fights that go on for page after page. And we wanted that from Orion and Darkseid. But the difference between this story and those stories is that Hercules and Thor wanted to fight each other. They really wanted to fight each other and show who was better. Orion and Calabac had this, they'd been fighting their whole lives, and they wanted really badly to fight each other. Darkseid and Orion really wanted to fight Darkseid. Darkseid didn't want to fight Orion. And Darkseid as sort of this master manipulator and master planner, and Orion as sort of a guy who is not a planner, which is laid out again and again in this series, wants to jump into battle with Darkseid, and he's just not going to get that opportunity. We get it here, and we'll talk about that more later when we come to it. So he's returned to Apokolips, but Apokolips is different. This is not the Apokolips of the 1970s series. This is the 1980s version of Apokolips. So Apokolips has become mechanized. You're going to see fewer soldiers and fewer, dog cavalry, and you're going to see more robots and drones and things to enforce the law. Is there anything better than two Kirby double-page splashes, one after the other? Look at this. This is amazing. And again, in some ways, this is fan service. Like, this issue delivers a lot of that. Like, I want, as a fan of this series, as a fan of Orion, I want to see Orion flying around on his Astro Force equipment and shooting at things, shooting at robots, whatever. This is, it's really delivering. So we get this like extended fight scene. Orion lays waste to Apokolips. And here's that panel that was duplicated for that The War Will End Now transitional panel. And Orion is just targets. All I need are targets. And he's just zapping everything. And that's what he wants from Darkseid. He wants, Darkseid to just sort of show up so he can, bend him into a pretzel. Kirby's getting more creative with his panel layouts, his arrangement of panels. And this becomes sort of a hallmark of late era Kirby. And it's got a lot in common with early Kirby. The stuff he was doing in the 40s had a lot of this experimentation. And then he sort of settled into, 6-panel grids, 4-panel grids, more standard grids. But he had a lot of this experimentation early in his career and late in his career. It's kind of diagonal panel. I think was partly, an attempt to sort of stay relevant, keep up with the new young kids, this, new generation of comics artists that have sort of sprung up. This was his attempt. And Orion meets a couple of young Apokolips kids who help him out of this jam with this pretty cool grenade tosser stick. And now they're getting chased by another, strange vehicle. Again, great excuse for Kirby to just go nuts doing all this stuff. So they saved Orion. Now Orion saves them. And this robot's on the attack. And then all of a sudden, this robot collapses into the ground. And Orion wonders how that happened. And it turns out it's our old friends, the female Furies, Barda's old battalion. And now they've been demoted. They're no longer warriors or whatever. They are desk jockeys. They're computer technicians. They have to. There's no real role for warriors like them in the new Apokolips, but there are plenty of jobs operating computer terminals. And good move, Lashina. I'd love to nail one of those mechs myself. How I despise those automated snoop and kill machines. They've changed us from warriors into nursemaids. And so they are a part of Apokolips, but, we know how great they are. We know they have hearts of gold. And so they're using their position there to undermine Darkseid's will, undermine the sort of law and order of Apokolips, and get a chance to have a little moment of heroism. This robot is sort of snitching on them. Stompa kicks it, and then Granny shows up, scolds them. Stompa grabs Granny's face. I'll stomp your guts to bits until you look like cute little Monitor there. Granny calls for the guards. They show up. And now the fight's on, and they're loving it because this is what they want out of life: a lot of action, excitement, and fighting. It's kind of an interesting sort of fun and melancholy epilogue to the story of the female Furies. These two sort of watchmen. It's kind of like a 1984, and again I think this comic was made in 1984. It's sort of a 1984, George Orwell's 1984 kind of society where everybody's working at some kind of, computer terminal, and everybody's snitching on everybody else. So these guys are sort of, watching over them, and they decide to administer electronic punishment. And they don't differentiate between the Furies and Granny. They give them all a zap. And it's kind of an interesting thing with this then, and then have it be the sort of zapping drone. Talking about Granny, they say, she's a lousy CompuTeam supervisor. She'll take her jolts with the rest. And now we get this panel. This is a really spectacular panel. And the first time I saw it was sort of like an excerpt of it in Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics as sort of an example of like Kirby being pure Kirby. And it's amazing. It's this, crazy computer. It's massive, great Darkseid, yet incredibly simple in its potential. It can be summed up in 3 expressions, sire.
I've heard it all before. Do anything. Probe anywhere. Manipulate time.
And so what this computer can do is bring back the dead. Bring the dead back to life. And so the technician hands Darkseid a helmet to use this machine, but he says, you know what? I have this power myself, and I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to bring back Desaad. And so we have this panel where it says zip, and then this beam of energy there coming from Darkseid's eyes. But I think out of context, this panel could look like, Darkseid taking a cosmic piss. And he brings Desaad back to life. And it's kind of cool seeing this panel by panel transfer, and then I am your servant, great Darkseid. So Desaad's back. And so if this comic, this particular issue is sort of fan service, and if it's doing the bidding of his employers, one of the things the employers wanted, they wanted a slam bang action fight between Darkseid and Orion. They also wanted, whatever characters were dead, that were killed off in New Gods, bring them back, because we're making toys out of all of them. So in the continuity of the comics, bring them back. So he brings back Darkseid, and now Light Ray joins the fray. Amateur warrior, return to New Genesis and live in peace. I won't desert a friend who is here to fulfill a mad prophecy. This confrontation between father and son is wrong. It bodes ill for both you and Darkseid. Your shooting spree, you really meant to wound me. Who knows? If those youngsters hadn't been there, who knows? Fool. So what he's referring to is, they got zapped. Somebody was shooting at them, and it turns out it was Light Ray. Even Light Ray himself is not quite sure whether or not he was trying to hurt Orion, trying to sort of shoot to stun, I guess, in order to keep Orion from fighting Darkseid. He thinks it's a really bad idea. I guess the same way maybe Jack Kirby maybe thought it was a bad idea too, but it's part of the story arc. Like, Orion, in any event, is going to want desperately to fight Darkseid. Whether or not that comes to pass, that still is going to be a big motivator for Orion. And now they hear this other drone flying overhead, a sound shark. It's one of Darkseid's new surveillance machines. It makes a sweep of the slums and checks on objects foreign to this area. Light Ray's, telling Orion that he needs his help more than ever in this, new apocalypse of this mechanized apocalypse. Now we have the Darkseid detention area, which there was a toy very similar to this that they made a prototype of and almost became an actual, toy from the Superpowers line, which Jack Kirby was designing. So he's doing the designs for the new Superpowers toys at the same time that he's doing this comic. So I'm guessing, this was a way of sort of, inserting that new toy into this story. This story, as much as I like it, is partially a toy catalog. And so we get another sort of action scene. Light Ray joins in and uses his powers. He melts one of these Apokolips, battle stations or whatever. And look at this. I mean, this is crazy. This kind of reminds me of the Matrix or something. All this metal, this station, a mass of flowing metal, all this melted metal is going right into this guy's mouth. Pretty gruesome stuff. Orion's sort of hiding out, sneaking around, doing sort of, guerrilla war kind of stuff. Throws that rock right through that tank. Steppenwolf has joined the fray. Steppenwolf, who is soon to be an action figure himself, he joins the fray, back from the dead with his dog cavalry. Now, I was always a fan of this concept that Kirby had of this sort of dog cavalry, which I think the first time he did it was in an issue of Captain Daring. But I just always liked that visual. It seemed like something Kirby was connected to. And so, as a fan reading this comic, I was a little bummed out with the way they dispatch this like amazing dog cavalry with a bunch of milk bones or whatever to lure the dogs into this water. They see the bones, they chase after them, and then end up in the water. But again, it's another example of Orion tries brute strength to get out of jams, and Light Ray tries to come up with clever solutions to puzzles. And if Orion wants to live and accomplish his goals, he needs to be more like Light Ray. Don't let deception defeat us. Rally, warriors, once more into the fray. This dolt is not the Steppenwolf who once gave us victories. I hope they return him to oblivion. So again, this sort of silliness of the new Steppenwolf is, part of the story. Darkseid, underlines this, that these characters he's bringing back from the dead, they're not quite the same, are they? They sort of come back, but they're like a dumbed down version of what they were in their original life. Orion and Light Ray, say goodbye to each other, give each other the thumbs up. Happy Days, still very popular at this point. The Fonz giving the thumbs up, and so these two are giving each other the thumbs up. Light Ray takes off, and now Orion's left alone to do things his way. And so we brought back Calabac, and Calabac is confused, and he's not quite the same guy. Darkseid says,
They don't fully return, do they?
They're like biological robots, sire, mindless animals, so to speak.
It's still an impressive game. Steppenwolf is back. Now resurrect Mantis.
They bring back Mantis, and I guess Jack, and the editor had probably forgotten that Mantis didn't die in in Jack's original series, unless maybe Mantis was killed off somewhat recently in maybe a different comic in like the 70s or 80s or something. But as far as I know, Mantis was still alive. So that's just a little bit of a glitch. Another view of this amazing, great Darkseid automation and detention center. Darkseid's version of the GoBot command center. Very toyetic. The toy prototype looks super cool, but of course, the Jack Kirby drawing is 100 times cooler. Orion has gotten inside the automation center. He's sneaking around in the shadows, doing sort of like a Solid Snake, Metal Gear, the game Metal Gear. He's sneaking around being stealth, and then when he needs to strike, he strikes. And, so we get a full page splash of him attacking. We get this great double page splash of him just, laying waste, complete carnage. In the context of destruction, Orion transcends the term. To oppose him is to die. To survive him is life lived in fragmented form. Stop him. He's a monster. I love the fact that we're getting, all these, page after page of Orion doing his Orion thing, because, we only had 11 issues prior to this. We didn't get nearly enough of that. I wanted, years and years of Orion doing his thing. Punches out this robot, Cosmos. He sees
animated bodies, their shells without identity.
So he walks in on this horror show of seeing, his brother Calabac and Desaad and Steppenwolf and even Mantis brought back from the dead. He's had his fill, and then, no ground is barred to me, Darkseid.
Orion, he's broken through our security. He could not have done this alone. There is a traitor in our midst.
Sorry, I'm after my own quarry. So it's on. This is it, the big battle between Darkseid and Orion. And last time on the road to Armageddon, Darkseid had a little bit of a lead time on Orion. He, got into his escape sled, his Blofeld on Her Majesty's Secret Service escape sled, with plenty of time to spare before Orion got to him. But this time he's cutting it really close. And this is an amazing sequence as he sort of slides down in his chair, Orion hot on his heels. He's not letting him get away this time. This moment may solve all our problems. Release my mother. Release her. Tigra and I will leave Apokolips forever. So we're finding out exactly what Orion wants. He wants to set his mom free, and take her away from this place. She's been Darkseid's prisoner ever since Orion was a child. And look, great sequence. Orion smashing the glass. Darkseid's shooting up at him.
I'll finish you both this day. Demon mother shall follow her demon son. The great energies burn low in these days of automation, but they keep my prisoners quiet and comfortable.
So yeah, in this new Apokolips, the fires aren't burning quite as bright. Apokolips has its own energy crisis. Tigra, it's my mother, Tigra. And Orion is, sort of surprised by this development, and now he's really motivated. Darkseid's threatening to kill his mother, kill him too. The great tyrant certainly packs his share of armament. These 3 panels this is what we get in terms of a final battle, the long-promised, father shall face son in the glares of the fire pits in Armageddon. This is what we get, is these 3 panels. And I wish there was more. I want, page after page of slam-bang battle like Thor versus Hercules, like Orion versus Calabac, but that is not the story that Jack Kirby wants to tell. That is not the way Kirby believes the story goes. The way he believes it goes is the way he shows it here. And who am I to question that? I see the wisdom in his ways. It's just, again, I'm a fan too, so I kind of, I want what a fan wants. But this is what we get. And it's pretty cool. So, and the lead up to it is pretty great, and the end of it is pretty great too. So they clash. Darkseid's zapping away with guns. Orion grabs his gun. They're wrestling with each other, zapping and wrestling. Orion throws a punch, finally gets to connect with a punch. Punches Darkseid in the face. Doesn't look quite as satisfying. He's not like, collapsing his skull. He's not, breaking his nose or anything. It's kind of a glancing blow. But again, like, Orion was never going to get that thing that he wanted, to sort of, have his hands on Darkseid's neck and kill him. It was never going to go that way. And I think a lot of the gunplay is also probably like the influence of Star Wars. I think this fight would have been more fisticuffs. It's just at this point, like the laser blasting and stuff, is such a part of like Star Wars and things. And I think, Kirby kind of internalized that of like, oh yeah, more laser guns, more zap zap with the laser gun. So here it is. And now, you cruel, arrogant.
Yes, now.
So Darkseid gives the signal, and his assassins step out of hiding and just start firing away at Orion, going all Sonny Corleone on him. They are Darkseid's finest marksmen and know the vital targets. Darkseid had this all ready to go. Orion, you were set up. You thought you were getting what you wanted, but once again, like everybody else who goes up against Darkseid, you just played right into his hand. This bullet-riddled, like Sonny Corleone body of Orion, maybe even dead standing, and just being sort of held up by the laser blasts. And then he falls into the fire pits.
Damn.
That's the end of him, sire. His body was a riddled vessel of death. Using Tigra as bait was a master stroke. Orion was no match for your craftiness and guile, sire. You can't defeat a master planner by going in just like full of rage. You got to play things smart.
True, but guile was not enough. Your work was something a father could not do.
And Jack has made reference to that. He, maybe he felt differently when he was originally working on this series, maybe not, but he spoke in interviews that he could not imagine a father, killing their own son. He could, and he could, even Darkseid. And so even Darkseid, this ultimate evil, needs somebody else to actually pull the trigger.
Are you sure he is dead? Did you see him die?
But sire, after all that happened, we can only draw one conclusion. We can also be certain the flames of the pit consumed his corpse. Orion is gone forever. Who among us can convince the evil? Unmoved by guilt, they forever live with doubt. If Orion is dead, he's left behind him eternal fear. If you see this as the ending, The New Gods ends on a real downer. But, by this point, work on Hunger Dogs was already completed. And so this is, planning to segue into the Hunger Dogs and has an ad for Hunger Dogs in it. So this is a real, tasty sampler. And stay tuned for Hunger Dogs. And so you get an essay by Jack Kirby with an updated version of that, self-portrait that he did back in the 70s with all his New Gods comics. Kirby on survival. There are tigers in the night, creatures bearing great scars, inflicted by wrenching confrontations, lethal rushes on dark, unyielding ground, where the body pours all its strength into fitful, instinctive thrusts. This is the real thing, the primal struggle. Throughout history, it has cried out for dramatization on a cave wall, the written page, or the panel of a comic book. In my attempt to create a serious novel for our medium, I have chosen the most basic of experiences, one we have all shared at one time or another, survival. I have taken this innate response to danger and have portrayed it in mythological terms. The concept is simple. Friends and enemies squaring off in various ways, for various reasons, on some eternal battleground where all is won or lost and the debris is cleared away for the next conflict. They are evil, we are good. They are plotters and traitors. We are loyal and clever. They are eternally responsible for our woes, so we will someday pull up our guts, stop the shadow boxing, and go in for the kill. Wow. Suffice it to say that, like Darkseid, I too play for keeps. So Kirby's essay continues, and then, we end with a big ad for the Hunger Dogs. When technology takes over, when your mind is a machine, Armageddon will be the battle for the streets. It will be the battle fought for the survival of humanity itself. It will be fought by the Hunger Dogs, the astonishing sequel to the New Gods saga by the legendary Jack Kirby, a 64-page graphic novel. So this miniseries of 6 issues collecting all the existing New Gods issues along with a new finale, that is the New Gods. That is the New Gods story. It ends on a huge bummer of Orion dying, but that was a possible outcome of this story. But there's a sequel coming very soon, The Hunger Dogs, and we'll be taking a look at that next episode. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Star and the Solar Legion. All 3 of those books are available by following the links in the show notes below. I'll see you next time for New Gods Sunday School.